Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. Ever hear a phrase that just really sticks with you? One that you might be pondering on for a while. Mine this past Saturday was, you'll have to be an active participant in your own whitewater rescue. You see, Drew and I had decided to go whitewater rafting. Went over to Tennessee to what's known as the Ocoee Combo. We had never gone whitewater rafting before. I will tell you right now, I was so naive. But it is an experience. Knowing what I know now, I would still have done it because of what it taught me about me. See, we can look at someone and tell how they'll be able to handle a crisis, emotionally or physically, just by their body, the language, the size. And I'm not talking about you have to be physically fit to lift a VW bus or maybe teeny tiny and not have any fat on you. No, I'm talking about looking like somebody that can carry yourself through whatever is going to happen and then be able to assist others also, because that's the meaning of being a true leader. It is creating certainty in an experience where there was not any until you showed up. Okay, so to go back to the phrase, you'll have to be an active participant in your own whitewater rescue. We were going through the training of what it meant to be out on the water doing these rapids. And I was naive as far as I thought on the Ocoee that you would have long stretches of nice water, almost like a float trip, interspersed with rapids. No. It was rapid after rapid after rapid for basically 4 hours, 10 miles, interspersed with just small pieces in between the rapids that would then give you time to set up for the next one. Did you have to go left or right? Were you going to have to get down into the bottom of the boat? Were you going to have to lean in? But I didn't know any of that. So we set out. And almost from the very beginning, I realized that this was going to be a little bit more intense than what I thought it was going to be. But I had to be an active participant in the experience in order to maintain control over my emotions. So we've got our crew. I am the only woman who was in our raft. We had Drew, my husband, as well as 2 fathers and their young adult sons. And as you can see from some of the pictures I'm showing you, this is one of the very first rapids we did. It gets pretty intense right off the bat. And then you're bouncing back up and you're getting ready for the next one. Not a whole lot of calm water out here. Well, the very first lesson as a leader that you're going to want to understand and being able to carry yourself through a challenge and then leading the way for others is that someone in your environment is going to cause you a crisis. Now, it's not going to be on purpose, typically, and they're not going to typically direct it at you, but it is going to be something that is going to cause you a challenge. So if you happen to be watching the slides that I'm doing, and if you're listening to the podcast, you can go and see the pictures that go along with this by going to my website, drewdawnferguson.com. Click on the blog and you'll see the whitewater experience. You can see as the raft lifts up that you're getting a lot of height here. Well, in our boat, I was one of the lightest. The person in front of me was easily 3 to 4 times my size. Think of a bouncy house. You know, the kind that have a tendency to drift away if they're not nailed down really tight? Well, think about sitting in a bouncy house, and if all of a sudden you have somebody 4 times your size throw themselves down on the bouncy house floor next to you, what's going to happen to you? You're going to go flying. It's what happened right after this picture was taken, is that I was launched out of the raft. And this is when you have to become an active participant in your own rescue first showed up. I did not realize that being an active participant in my first rescue was actually going to assist me probably about 90 minutes later, when for a few minutes I was actually, fighting for my life, trying to make sure that this river did not claim me. So we hit that rapid. He comes down and it sends both his son, who's in front, and me, who's in back, flying out of the boat. His son only landed a few feet from the boat. I landed several feet away. Now, they had taught us in our training, reach out for help. Take your paddle, which I held on to, and reach out for help. I did that, but I got grabbed in the current so fast that within just a few seconds, I was probably about 30 to 40 feet from the boat, rapidly moving downstream on my own. So they trained you to do certain things. One of them is if you found yourself in this position, you needed to be going feet first down the river. I was not. I got turned around and I couldn't get myself repositioned because keep in mind, we are still in rapids. So the water that is washing over me is coming over head first. I can't catch my breath. That's when the rescue kayak showed up. They had told us there will be a handle on the front of the kayak and the back of the kayak, and that grab onto that handle. I tried it on the front. I was washed away from the kayak too quick. He had to reposition himself. I was able to grab onto the handle of the back of the kayak. And this is when I learned my very important lesson. You cannot rescue yourself. I keep telling people this. If you've listened to me in this podcast or these videos, you are going to experience something that you can't get yourself out of because it is overwhelming you. It is flooding you. You're going to need the assistance of someone else. And yet, what do? We're like, if I just read another book, take another class, watch another video, I'll be okay. No, when you're in that crisis position, like what I was, none of that was going to help me. I had to have someone more knowledgeable than I was, somebody who was an authority figure that says, I've got you, follow my directions, we'll get you out of this. So I did. So lesson number 1 is somebody is going to cause you a crisis. Know that it's coming. And then number 2, you're going to have to participate in your own rescue by pairing up with someone who's more knowledgeable to get you out of the situation that you're currently in. They got me back over to the boat, and now I'm a little bit more somber. In fact, a lot of people, as I was sharing these videos, said that, wow, you're smiling in them. This is no longer a smile of, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm enjoying this. Because if you've been in my world for a while, you know I happen to be the type of person that can have a challenge with my emotions. I'm the one who wakes up in the morning going, what's going to happen today? Oh, yeah. What's going to happen today? Because I have to give it meaning. And this is a technique that I learned years and years ago as a certified hypnotist. That whenever we are in a fear state and we think we are going to be overwhelmed, that we need to go into what is known as a Duchenne smile. A Duchenne smile is when you're doing the chipmunk cheeks, okay? That that they're lighting up around the corners. By the way, this picture I'm showing you here was a true Duchenne smile. This was the dam that we had to walk around with our boats to get into the second half. And it wasn't long after this that for a few moments I was actually fighting for my life. But a Duchenne smile is when you crinkle the lines around your eyes. You're smiling so big. A Duchenne smile tells the brain that you really must be having a good time. So if you're experiencing any type of pain, whether it's physical or emotional, and believe me, I was experiencing emotional pain after I was launched out of the boat, because now I'm like, what if this happens again? What if we hit another hard piece? I need to be hyper aware, but I need to be hyper aware when I'm in control, not when I'm allowing fear to overwhelm me. And so that's why you'll see in these pictures, I'm doing a Duchenne smile, because it's one of the ways that I was telling my brain, we've got this. Okay. So someone's going to cause you a crisis. You're going to have to participate in your own rescue. You cannot rescue yourself. And so we're going down the second piece of the river, our following 2 hours after we walked around the dam. And our guide, Parker, is telling us, it's interesting that we already lost a couple of people in the first half of all of this, because this is the part where we typically will have people come out of the boat. Okay. Life will tell you what's coming up. Are you listening? So we're moving along, and we come to a part that is known as the washing machine. And it's called the washing machine because the way the rapids are designed is that it just keeps churning you over and over and over. And you got to be really careful going through this part. And if you're looking in the pictures, I want you to notice the boulders that are causing these rapids. Well, in the one that I'm showing you, this is when things are getting ready to go south, because there was a boat next to us that got stalled in the rapids. We started to move past them. We got in front of them. And it is at this point where I'm showing you on the pictures that we were hit by that other raft, and we tipped. And when we tipped, everybody came out. So I like what you said, Timothy, the smile of survival. That's exactly what it freaking felt like. Okay. So our boat tipped upside down. Now, this is the most dangerous situation you can be in whitewater rafting, is getting caught in rocks or debris underneath. The second most dangerous situation is being in the boat and the boat tips. As soon as it tipped, we were caught now in what's known as the washing machine. It's just turning and churning and churning you. But with the way things were positioned, I wound up down on bottom and the men were on top, and all of us were trapped underneath the raft. So I am trying to fight my way up to the surface, and I am trying to fight my way up through other people being on top of me. By the time I did get up to the surface, they had all cleared out from underneath the raft. One of the dads with the two young sons, the two young adults, was picked up by another raft. At this point, all traffic came to a halt as they were trying to sort out everything that was going on on the river. So a raft picked them up. Our guide Parker was able to grab my husband Drew. Another guide was able to grab the father that was in front of me and get him over to the very rocky shore. And where's Dawn? Dawn's underneath the raft, and the raft is dragging me face first over these rocks, and I can't get out from underneath it. And it is banging me one rock after the other. Luckily, I've got on a vest, so that's protecting the blows that I'm hitting from the rocks. I can't get my head up above water to get a clear breath because I'm face down, and I know instinctively I really can't go any further, because if I do, you're right, Timothy. This is not a sales ad for rafting. I had a couple of people ask me, would you recommend this? After you've been in a car accident, are you going to recommend getting out on the road and driving? You're going to tell people, hey, I was in one of the worst experiences there was, but it's going to be the meaning you attach to the experience. I've been in a two-seater Miata that was broadsided on one side, pushed underneath a pickup truck that was on my side that then ran over us. Did it keep me from getting back out on the road? No, I was back out on the road the next day driving. Not in that car. It was absolutely totaled. But it made me a better driver because of the meaning we attach to things. So when you're a true leader, you will bring certainty to the experience where there is none. And you just don't all of a sudden pop into being a leader. You have to work at it. And that's why I'm sharing you this story, because there is something coming up in your life and it is going to catch you off guard. And you need to start preparing for it now. So when you get through it, not only will you get through it, but you're going to set the example of how others can follow. So I'm underneath this raft and I realize the very thing that's beating me up, which is these rocks, is the very thing I'm going to use to get out of this situation. I tell people again and again, the obstacle that is in front of you is the stepping stone for your next level of success, but you've got to learn how to rise above it, which is the very next thing I did. The next rock that I slammed into, I wrapped myself around it and I started pushing myself up. I thought I was going to be able to push the raft off of me. Several hundred pounds. No, that what was so incorrect. I wasn't going to push it off. But what I was able to do is I was able to slow the raft down, that the rescue kayaker was able to grab it, begin to lift it. And when he did, I washed out from underneath it. I was able to immediately turn up on my back. When the rescue kayaker saw that's where I was, he got next to me and he's like, just like we did it before. See, that the events of the future will cast their shadow upon today. In writing class, they call it foreshadowing. I knew that being rescued the first time, whenever I was launched out of the boat, that something else was coming my way. I already knew how to reach up and grab on. He took me over to the rocky shore. I'm now standing up on the rocks underneath. One of the guides, because we had 10 boats in our expedition, one of the guides is out on the shore and he's like, okay, what's broke? I'm like, nothing. I'm dazed, but nothing. And they're like, okay, you were trapped under the raft for several minutes. I'm like, yeah, I knew. He's like, is anything bleeding? I'm like, I can't tell. Doesn't feel like it. Again, is there anything broke? No. And that's when I looked at him and I said, I'm too weak to get into the raft on my own. I'm going to need you guys to get me in it. I can't participate in getting back into the raft. Now, at this point, I had every right to say, you know what? It's too much. I don't want to do it. And I didn't, because I knew what was coming for me. Now, there have been times when I've said that. Whenever I was 150 feet off the peak of a mountain and a storm started blowing in, and it was 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, and there were no bars. There were no footholds on the peak of the mountain. And I knew I couldn't make it all the way to the top. The winds were going to blow me off. I was too weak. It was okay for me to say no to that. This, I knew it was not okay because I knew what was going to happen if I said I wasn't going to continue. And it was going to be, I would be emotionally flooded like this, that I was going to be overwhelmed, because fear will do this to you and it will take you down. It will intimidate you and it will tell you how to live the rest of your life. You can't do that. How do you take your power back from these situations? You have to give a meaning to what you've been through. We're the only creatures we know that tell stories about what we've been through. We're the only ones that can say, oh my gosh, I can't recoup from this. Or we're going to say, this is how we're going to use it. Not just for us. To be a true leader means to bring certainty to an experience where there wasn't any before you showed up. When I got back in the boat, the dad that's sitting in front of me, who was still on the shore, shaking like I've never seen a man shake before. I'm like, are you okay? He's like, I couldn't find my son. They've got him, but I couldn't find my son. He got back in the boat. Drew got back in the boat. We went over and we picked up the other father with the two sons. And he's white as a sheet. And he's got that funny, kind of hysterical laugh. And he goes, yeah, when I told my wife I was going to do this with my son, she said, you better give me all the passwords to all of our accounts. And he's laughing, trying to make a joke of it. Later on, because we had another hour and a half of rapids after all of that. Later on, Parker said, after we tipped it, all of you guys got real quiet. Yeah, we did. Because we had all moved so far out of our familiar zone. We were putting together an identity that we were going to keep going no matter what had happened. That's a leader. And then you make way for other people. It didn't sink in until we were on the bus ride back after we got picked up after the rafting trip. And now we're on the bus ride back to the place where we had started our journey. And Drew and I were in the very first seat on the bus, and we could hear the one guide that was over all 10 boats and the bus driver talking. And they were talking about Parker's boat flipping at the washing machine rapids. And then the one main guide said, and then they all got back in the boat. And the bus driver's like, what? All of them got back in? And he's like, yeah. Because sometimes we need contrast, we need perspective, we need someone else who's not in the situation to stand back and go, way to do it. You moved through. Now, I will say, after I posted the pictures this weekend on everything that happened, I got two reactions from other women. The first reaction was, oh, you were so brave and courageous. No, it's not brave and courageous to find fuller expression in your life. To say, I got to find out the limits of my potential and even go past them if I've got a really good guide like what Parker was, and say, you know what? I'm not even sure what I'm capable of, which is going to lead me to our final point here in just a moment. So you got to get out of where you are right now. There's something coming, and you've got to learn what you're truly capable of moving through, because without that, it's going to take you out. And when you're in crisis mode, you cannot be an active participant in your own rescue. No, you've got to have enough in you to say, I can pair up with somebody to get me through this. Okay, so that was the first reaction I get. The other one was, oh my goodness, look at all the wonderful lessons you've learned from this. These are what I call emotional managers that are also AKA emotional manipulators. They want everybody to find the good in something. You know what? That only happens with perspective, and perspective shows up through space as far as maybe having a higher viewpoint, and it also happens with time. You're not always going to see the good life lessons, and sometimes I've been through losses where you were just lucky to get through the loss and you knew it. It's not, oh, look at all the good that came from it. Nope. You just learned that you had strength that you could draw on that you didn't know that you had before. Emotional manipulators want everybody. That's how they try to get certainty in life, is because let's have it to where everybody feels good. And that's not going to happen, guys. But then you haven't stuck with me this far, because you know that it's not always going to turn out the way you want. Okay, so as I wrap all of this up, you've got to get out of your familiar zone. You know, maybe it's a hill in your neighborhood that you need to learn to start climbing, and you don't have the stamina to be able to do it. And that's going to be a win for you. I tell you what, the very first time I've been a certified hypnotist now for 16 years. The very first time I had to give a talk on it, I had such extreme fear over public speaking that I was out on the parking lot puking before I went in to give my talk. That win was equal to the win I did Saturday finishing this. It's just like I'm coming at it with a more expanded identity right now. So I don't know what your familiar zone is, but I know it is acting like a choke chain and a leash where fear is now walking you around in life. And you've got to get out of it. I don't know what's calling you to step up. Is it that relationship where you need to commit? Is it a new career? Is it a relationship you need to get out of? Is it asking for your worth? But there's something that is calling you to expand your potential. And you're allowing the pain of your past to keep you stuck underneath that raft. And it just keeps beating you against rocks again and again and again. I don't know if I might be that coach, that hypnotist, that mentor that can assist you. If you want to explore and find out, then you can go to canhypnosishelpyou.com and set a consult. If you want to reach out by text and you want to talk to me personally instead of one of my associates, you can do that by sending a text to 636-699-7791 and say consult with Dawn. Because if you just say consult, you're going to get one of my associates. If you want to be able to assist people with their fears to where that is now used as extra energy for success, that stress and that overwhelm, they're actually going to use it to propel themselves forward. Go to ischforyou.com and see if I might be the instructor. I'm going to tell you right now, I am going to be someone, whether you choose me as your hypnotist and coach, whether you choose me as an instructor, you already know I am going to push you past that familiar zone, that comfort zone that is keeping you a captive. But I've earned the right to do it because it's something I do for myself. You will have to be an active participant in your own rescue. You're going to have to pair up with somebody. To be a leader, you bring certainty to an experience where there was not any certainty before. I'm here for you to discover that leadership potential that you have and turn it on into something that can be used starting today. Are you willing to step into it? The world needs you more than ever. I've put out the call for you. Are you willing to answer?